Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Smith, and this is 5.4 Scale and Proportions. I'm having a bit of technical difficulties with my stylus, so I'm going to make do with a mouse. So hopefully everything goes smoothly. We'll do our best. Let's start off with some review of cross multiplication. I believe you guys would have been taught this earlier. If you haven't, don't worry. We're going to go over it, and it's pretty straightforward once you know. There's really only two steps. So with cross multiplication, we use this method for ratios and fractions. We use this method to calculate actual measures compared to a scaled replica or drawing, or vice versa. So going from the actual measure and figuring out how big it would be on a replica. So essentially, here's the steps. Step 1, multiply the known diagonal. So in our example 1, we have 3 and 8. We know 3 and 8, so we'll be multiplying those. Step 2, divide by the last known number. Well, we don't know what x is, but we know what 2 is. So we divide by 2. Step 3 is the final results. So multiply by 3 by 8, then divide by 2. X is going to equal 12 because 3 times 8 equals 24. Then you take that 24 divided by 2, you get 12, and that's what x is equal to. 3 and 8 were on our diagonal, and we knew both in this diagonal. If it was the other way, we would multiply the other two numbers, but it's not, so we multiply 3 by 8, and then 2 is the leftover known number, so we divide by 2. Multiply the diagonal, divide by the last known number. That's all there is to it. Next example. There's a ratio of cats to dogs that is 3 to 5. If there's 9 dogs, how many cats are there? Well, first we set up a table. We set up 3 to 5 horizontally, and we have 3 cats. It should say dogs to cats in this example. So it should be 3 dogs to 5 cats because there's 9 dogs. 9 goes under here. So you have 3 to 5 because that's our ratio that's given. So 3 to 5 is horizontally across. And then we set up the number of dogs under the number of dogs. There is 3 dogs in our ratio 3 to 5. Again, remember, cats to dogs should be reversed. It should be dogs to cats. The example got messed up. So you multiply your known diagonal. And in this case, the diagonal is actually, where you know both of them, is actually 9 and 5. Now we change the weight. So you're going to multiply 9 by 5, then divide by 3, because 3 is the last known number. So 9 times 5. Notice the top row is the ratio. The bottom number is the actual numbers. Use cross multiplication to solve. So 9 times 5 gives us 45. Right? Because 9 times 5, those are our known diagonals. Then we're going to take that 45, divide it by 3, and we get 15. That means x equals 15, and that we have 15 cats if there is 9 dogs. And that is our final step there. Thus, there's 15 cats. All right, perfect. Let's move on to the next example. So we just dive right into this. If I'm giving you a ratio, it's just like we did before, except now I say it's a scale, so a measurement of some sort. I don't have you converting measurements right now. I would have you combine that all in one go later on. So example 1. If a blueprint is drawn at a 3 to 200 scale, what is a measurement of the blueprint length of a 100-yard football field? That means we're going to take that 100 yards and figure out how far we're going to draw it on the blueprint. So we set it up like this. Our scale is set up horizontally across. One's the smaller scale, because the smaller number is going to be what's going on our blueprint, obviously, right? Because we can't have a 100-yard blueprint, so that doesn't make any sense. So we're going to have 3 to 200. And then the 100 is going to go under the 200 because that's the life size numbers there. So we have our blueprint numbers on our left column, and then on the right column we have our life size numbers. Okay. So now we cross multiply 3 times 100 because that's the diagonal numbers that we know, then divide by 200. So 3 times 100 gives us 300. 300 divided by 200 gives us 1.5. So the blueprint length is 1.5 yards. So this is a fairly large blueprint. If you know what 1.5 yards is, that is about 4.5 meters, if I'm not mistaken, or 4.5 feet, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a large blueprint. It could be of a very large building, and that could be the reason why it's so large. However, that's our answer, 1.5 yards. Next, we have example 2. I'm going to scroll down for that. If a floor plan is drawn at a 1 to 400 scale, how tall or how long is the wall drawn 4 centimeters on the floor plan? So how long is the actual wall if it's drawn 4 centimeters on the floor plan? Well, let's set this up in our table. We have our ratio set horizontally, and it's 4 centimeters on the floor plan, so we put it on the floor plan side. So this is our blueprint or our scale replica size on the left. Our life size is over on the right. So if it's 4 on the left, we got to figure out what's on the right. So we multiply our diagonal, then divide. 4 times 400, then divide by 1. So 4 times 400 gives us 1,600. Take that number, 1,600 divided by 1 equals 1,600 centimeters. Or if you're feeling adventurous, you can convert it back to meters, 16 meters, which is a pretty long wall. All right, next example, next page. I got to scroll up to make sure I get it. Example 3. If Mr. Smith were to create an action figure of himself with a 3D printer that is 1/18 his height, how tall would it be if he's 180 centimeters? This isn't accurate, but we're going to go with it because I like the measures. So if I'm going to print a 3D action figure of myself, I'm going to use a 1/18 scale. So I have my 1 to 18 as my ratio up here. My 1 is going to be the action figure scale, the replica scale, and then the right is going to be the real life scale. So the real life is 18 for the ratio, and then 180 is how many centimeters tall I am. So then we cross multiply 1 times 180, then divide it by 18. So 1 times 180 gives us 180 exactly. Divided by 18, we get 10. So when I 3D print it, it's going to be 10 centimeters long. All right, that should be everything for this lesson. You can go on to the practice, complete the Google form on Google Classroom. You might want to use some scrap paper just to do some rough work. I'll be checking the answers afterwards too, so please don't email me that you entered the correct answer and it marked you wrong. I get that that happens. It's hard for me to program all the possible right answers because there's tons of different little formatting. So bear with me on that, okay? I will mark it. I do double check those answers. All right, have a good day and enjoy the rest of your week.